Well, hello, we continue our pastor's devotional Bible study series looking at this Galatians passage, chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. Fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. When Paul wrote this letter to Galatia, he was trying to help them develop an understanding of what it means to be in Christ. And he was saying if you are in Christ, then you would produce the same sort of things from your life that Christ produced from his. And that here's a list of things. And so what I thought would be helpful as a devotional series is now to go back and to look at the life of Christ and to look at one example, lots of examples for all of them, but let's look at one example of when Christ produced each of these fruit, and maybe that would spur our own production of these fruit, or sort of expand our definition of them, or how we conceive that these things could be produced from our lives. So, number 8, gentleness is where we are today. John chapter 11, verses 28 through 37. John chapter 11, verses 28 through 37. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up and quickly go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said to her, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?" But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man had kept this man from dying?" This is a story about the death of Lazarus. Now, Lazarus and Mary and Martha lived in a village called Bethany. It was, as the text says, just a couple miles outside of Jerusalem. And what we believe is that Lazarus and Mary and Martha, they were siblings, that they were followers of Jesus, believers in Jesus, and that it was at their house in Bethany that whenever Jesus and his disciples came to minister in Jerusalem, that the house in Bethany was sort of their home place. That was their landing spot. That was their home away from home when they were in Jerusalem. And that Jesus was very close to them and had been with them and in their home many times, perhaps. And so Lazarus, the brother, is sick, and Mary and Martha, the sisters, send word to Jesus to come. And Jesus says, "Well, I'll be there soon, but I've got these other things to do." And so he stays there a couple days before he makes his way back to Bethany. And by the time he gets back to Bethany, Lazarus has died, and they have entombed his body. And Jesus encounters the sisters who are weeping and saying, "If only you would have been here." And then there's this passage. Now, I read from the New Revised Standard Version, and what it says is Jesus began to weep, chapter 11, verse 35. In other translations, it's the shortest verse in the entire Bible, and what it says is Jesus wept. Jesus wept. That, and whether he was weeping over the loss of his friend, that was probably some of it. Whether he was weeping over the grief that he experienced from Mary and Martha, the sister of Lazarus, he wept with them. In some way, he participated with them in their pain. And, I think about this idea of gentleness. And when we think of gentleness, we immediately what comes to mind for me is being gentle with a child, a newborn. And you get that newborn and it's like, I need to be gentle or else I could break this thing. It's so fragile. Well, I mean, the truth is it's pretty easy to be gentle in that situation. What else comes to mind is being gentle with someone who is elderly and aged and you're providing care for them. That as you're moving them or transferring them or helping them, you want to be gentle so that you don't cause them pain. And those are certainly places where we can be gentle. But I'm also thinking about places where we can weep with people, which to me seems a pretty gentle response. We can weep with people because we enter into their suffering. One of the worst things we can say to people is oftentimes what we say when people are suffering and we don't know what else to say. Like, don't worry, there's other fish in the pond, right? Terrible thing to say to someone who's just lost an important relationship. Or time will heal all wounds. Terrible thing to say to someone who is amidst grief. God needed another angel, or they're in God's hands. There's so many things that we say to people in their time of grief that are not gentle. And in part, I think we do that. We're uncomfortable. We don't know exactly what to do or to say. But also, it's not just that we're uncomfortable, that we don't know what to do or to say, but their grief also makes us uncomfortable. We'd much rather life be happy and joyful and rejoicing all the time. And so what we want to do is we want to pull those people out of their grief. And in doing so, it's like yanking that person who we're supposed to be transferring to a new bed, yanking them by the arms or grabbing that child in a sort of rough way, as opposed to being gentle. And so today, don't think so much of gentle as a way in which physically we might interact with someone. But think about emotionally how we might interact with someone. There's a lot of people that are suffering in our world right now. People who are suffering because of the coronavirus. People are suffering because of the racial unrest in our nation. How can you have a gentle spirit with those around you who are suffering? My guess is all of us can think of people during times in which we needed a shoulder to lean upon, and there were people who are not all that gentle during that time and sort of, said some trite things to just try to mask over our grief. My guess also is that there's times in which people have really lived that gentleness emotionally for each of us. And what we discover is that those are the times in which we really felt cared for, which we really felt heard and known and companioned. And so emotionally, how can we be gentle with folks and practice that way of our faith? And Jesus stops on his journey and he weeps with her. Maybe there's some people along our journey right now, and what we need to do is we need to stop and to be with them emotionally right where they are and practice that fruit of the Spirit. For God is with us no matter where we are, which means we get the opportunity to be with others in the name of God, no matter where they are. God bless.